I'm a Tamilan. There are many of us today who like to brag that we are Tamils. But honestly, how many of you know the history of the Tamils? If you just spend the next 10 minutes with me, I'll walk you through the 3,000 years of history of the Tamils. Now, jump into my time machine as I'm going to take you back to 1000 BC. Hello everyone, I'm Ungal Anban Hemant. Today we will be going through the 3,000 years of history of Tamilagam. But before we get there, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. We'll look at this in 4 sections. First, we'll look at the 3 periods, then the 3 empires, then the 5 scripts, and finally a full timeline of the 3,000 years of history. Firstly, how old is Tamilagam? We know it is at least 3,000 years old. You may know about the archaeological sites Adichannallur, which was from 900 BC, and Keeradi, which was from 600 BC. But remember, by this time, these people were very civilized. This means these communities did not form at that time. Their origins were much older. Also based on Kumarikandam theories and the Mudal Sangam and the Idai Sangam literature, the origin of Tamil may have been much older. Now, keeping aside this ancient history, we will look at 3 periods of recorded history. The history of Tamilagam is divided into 3 periods: early, medieval, and the later period. The early period was from 300 BC to 300 AD, and we have records of these mostly from the Tamil Sangam texts such as Purananuru, Agananuru, Paditru, etc. Then we have the medieval period, which was from 600 AD to 1100 AD. And finally, the later period was any time after that. Now, we look at the 3 most important empires. The 3 most important empires were Chera, Chola, and Pandya. They were the Moovendargal, or the 3 crowned kings. Typically, people think of only one capital per kingdom, but that's not true. Each of these kingdoms had an inland capital where the king ruled from, and they also had a port capital. The Chera capitals were Karur or Vanji Karur and Muziris. The Chola capitals were Urayur, which is today's Trichy, and Kaveri Pumbattinam or Pumbuhar. The Pandya capitals were Madurai and Korkai. Remember, these were only the old capitals. The capitals kept changing through time. For example, the Chola capitals changed from Urayur to Parayarai to Tanjavur and then to Gangaikonda Cholapuram. During the ancient times, there was also a smaller kingdom called the Velar Kingdom, which had multiple chieftains ruling smaller territories. The famous Adiyaman was one among the Velar chieftains. Well, we are not done yet. In addition to the Moovendar and the Velars, in the medieval and the later periods, there were at least 6 other major kingdoms. In the medieval and later periods, there were at least 6 other major kingdoms. Starting with the Pallavas in the medieval period, there were the Delhi and Madurai Sultanate who ruled for a small time, then the Vijayanagara Empire, then the Nayakas, then the Marathas, and then the Nawabs of Arcot before Tamilagam went into the hands of the British for about 200 years. And then we got independence. The pronunciation, or the way Tamil is spoken, has not changed for the past 3,000 years. However, the written form of the language, or the script, has evolved so much. You may already know that the Indus script has not yet been deciphered. However, there are many scholars like Airavadam Mahadevan and Asko Parpola who have proved that the Indus script is actually Tamil. Now, keeping all that aside, let's look at the most accepted 5 Tamil scripts. Tamil Brahmi or Tamili is one of the earliest scripts. We find this in Adichannallur, Keeradi, Jambai inscriptions, and at many other places. All the Sangam poems should have been written in the script. The next one is Vatteluthu. If you remember the Kochadayan Pandian video from the past, the Velvikudi grant from the 8th century was written in Vatteluthu. Next is the Pallava script. Pallava kings took the Tamil Brahmi script and they developed it and called it the Pallava script. You can see the script in Mahabalipuram even today. Then came the Grantha script, which was developed from the Pallava script. Malayalam script came out of this. Only after the 11th century, the modern script that we use today came into use.
Now, let's look at a full timeline of the 3,000 years of history, along with some of the most famous kings.
Up to 300 AD, the Moovendargal, Chera, Chola, Pandyas ruled, and the Velars ruled along with them. Some of the most famous early Pandya kings were Nedunjaliyan, Muthukudumi Peruvaludi, Chera kings Nedunjeraladan Sengutuvan, and Chola kings Manunidi Chola, Karikala Chola, Nalankilli, and Nerinkkilli.
Then, for about 300 years, Kalabras or the Kalappiras ruled. It is called the Dark Age of Tamilagam as there are no proper records of this time. We don't know of any Chera, Chola, Pandya kings from this time. This was also the time when the 5 great epics of Tamil were written. Also, this was a time when Buddhism and Jainism thrived in Tamilagam.
After Kalappirar, the Pandya king Kadungon and the Pallava king Simhavishnu defeated the Kalabras and revived their kingdoms. Note that the Cholas did not come back to power yet. This was the time when the Pandya king Kochadayan ruled and the Pallava kings Mahendravarman and Narasimhavarman ruled.
Then, with Vijayalaya Chola, the Cholas came back to prominence. The Pandyas did exist, but they were under the supremacy of the Cholas. Some of the most famous medieval Cholas were Sundara Chola, Rajaraja Chola, Rajendra Chola, and Kulothunga Chola. We've already made videos on most of these great kings. Now, we'll look at someone who made the Chola kingdom decline.
The Pandya king Maravarman Sundara Pandya defeated the Cholas and caused its downfall. He became the greatest of the later Pandyas. Then, the Delhi Sultan Alauddin Khalji's general Malik Kafur raided Madurai. And then the Delhi Sultan Tughlaq captured Madurai and made it a province of Delhi Sultanate and called it Maabar province. Then it became an independent empire called Madurai Sultanate. Then the Vijayanagara Emperor Bukkaraya defeated them and Tamilagam became a part of the Vijayanagara Empire.
Then the Vijayanagara Emperor Krishnadevaraya split Tamilagam into 3 and appointed governors called the Nayakas. Later, the famous Thirumalai Nayaka severed ties with them and made himself an independent king. Rani Mangammal also came from this line.
Then Zulfikar Khan, a governor under Aurangzeb, became the first ruler of the Nawab of Carnatic or the Nawab of Arcot. Some of the most famous Nawabs of Arcot were Chanda Sahib and Muhammad Ali Walaja. You may remember them from our Velu Nachiyar video and the Marudanayagam video. After the downfall of the Nayaka kingdom, the Palayakkarars, who were under the Nayakas, became independent rulers. The Tanjavur Nayaka kingdom was replaced by the Tanjavur Marathas. Finally, the British East India Company that set foot on Indian soil as traders in the 1600s became much more powerful. They executed Palayakkarars Kattabomman, Marudhu Pandiyar and Umaithurai and demolished most of the forts of Tamilagam. Eventually, they swallowed the kingdom of Arcot Nawabs. After about 100 years, the company's rule was replaced by the British government's rule.
So this was the vast history of Tamil and the people of Tamilagam. Now you could proudly say, I'm a Tamilan who knows the history of Tamil. If you like this video, please share this and help this video reach even more people. I'll see you in another interesting video soon. Naan ungal Anban Hemant.